This is John W. Whitehead, author of Battlefield America, The War on the American People, bringing you a message about the state of our nation. Anybody that's aware of what's going on today in our world must realize that we live in two worlds. There's the ones that we seem to see with our eyes and maybe our minds, and then there's the one that kind of operates under the scenes, operates kind of moving and weaving. We kind of sense it sometimes, we see it, we might get outraged, but we seem to go back to sleep. This was the thesis of John Carpenter's movie, They Live, a 1988 film, which has now gone on to be iconic because of what it proposed about our reality. A key moment in the film comes when the character John Nada, played by the late Roddy Piper, puts on these glasses, and all of a sudden he sees all these strange subliminal messages beaming out, controlling everybody. Billboards blare out hidden authoritative messages. A bikini-clad woman in one ad is actually ordering viewers to marry and reproduce. Magazine racks scream, consume, obey. A wad of dollar bills in a vendor's hand proclaims, "This is your God." Other messages are, no independent thought, conform, submit, stay asleep, buy, watch TV, no imagination, do not question authority. This is the indoctrination campaign that John Carpenter proposes that we're under in his movie They Live. But if you look around you, you'll see the same thing happening in our particular culture. What we see around us today are citizens who don't think for themselves. They don't question authority, the majority of Americans, and they're continually distracted by some kind of screen device. What we're being fed, in my opinion, is a series of images, messages from our government, again, to also those who control the government, those with the money, messages that keep us basically slaves to the hierarchy. We follow along no matter what they say. We line up and vote every 4 years, although, as people say, voting doesn't really matter. In fact, in 2014, Princeton University with Northwestern University did a study of 2 decades of policies passed in Washington, D.C. What was the conclusion? The American voter has virtually no input in what happens in government. What we see is a moneyed oligarchy controlling things and disguising our form of government as a democracy. Consider this. It's estimated that the 2016 presidential election could cost as much as $5 billion, more than double of what was spent getting Obama elected in 2012. Not only do you have to be rich or beholden to the rich to get elected these days, but getting elected is a surefire way to get rich. As CBS News reports, and I'm quoting here, once in office, members of Congress enjoy access to connections and information they can use to increase their wealth in ways that are unparalleled in the private sector. And once politicians leave office, their connections allow them to profit even further. As I show in my book, Battlefield America, The War on the American People, what we've come to, and we have to be very, very serious when we talk about this subject here, we're moving to a system which used to be called fascism. In other words, when money runs government. The term corporatism was originally coined by Benito Mussolini, who ruled the fascist state of Italy. Adolf Hitler soon followed suit. But it was the idea that money could come in, run government, and dictate what happens and portray the government as a freedom-loving democracy. Originally, people like Mussolini, in fact, Winston Churchill called him a financial genius. But what we saw was the outcome of building regimes. The point is once economic interests take over the government, they do not do it. They're not necessarily evil, but they do not do it for freedom or protecting rights. They do it to make money. So the more control, the more money they make off the citizenry, the more they enjoy wealth, and again, the more they attempt to hide behind the scenes of government portraying what we live in as a democracy. What's happened in this country, fascism or neo-fascism, has moved into our system under the term privatization. And you hear that word a lot. We need to privatize this, privatize this. In fact, one of the scariest developments in this country is the rise of private prisons, where prisons actually take over the systems, require states to keep the beds full, and they will pay them, and then they use the prisoners to make products. This is happening in America all across the country. When I did my study of history, I was shocked to find that the Nazi concentration camps, camps like Auschwitz, where they gassed and killed people and worked them to death, were actually private prisons who made products for Europe. So what we're seeing is a top-down form of government where it's run by very strong, powerful interests. The exact opposite of what the so-called Founding Fathers gave us in our Constitution. Their idea of a government was local governments control. The federal government was a distant government who would provide defense and those kind of things, help coordinate things. But government would be run by cities, other community groups, voluntary groups, counties, and states. But that's no longer true. As George Orwell said, the main purpose of government is control, and government will not give up that control without a fight. And how do they control people today? One is through fear. Hitler and other ones said it very openly. Fear is the way you can control a populace. And today, as you look around, people fear the police, they fear their neighbors, they fear terrorists, they fear people who have vegetable gardens, people are getting arrested for that or feeding birds in their front yard. We're seeing all kinds of fear. But again, that's a facade. Statistics show that the average American watches at least 150 hours of television a month. And by the way, what you watch on television and your screen devices is controlled by 6 mega corporations, who, by the way, those corporations work with the government. So this may lend some credence to the theory that what you're watching over your screen devices can control you. They live, we sleep. Folks, most of us have been asleep. While we've been asleep, some kind of alien body has taken over government. Moneyed interest. It's what we've seen in former regimes, and it's very, very dangerous. We need to get back to democracy. We need to get back to local citizens getting active in their government. We need to turn off the screen devices. At least, I'm telling people, give me 1/3 of those hours you spend watching TV, 70 or 80, getting involved in local city government, contacting your local representatives, folks. And what I'm saying is, if they live, you're the reason they live. It's time to wake up, folks, and stop sleeping and get active if we're going to save our freedoms. For more information on the Rutherford Institute, visit us at www.rutherford.org.